everybody. Have you ever had any time when you've been in an intercultural situation and you felt a little bit uncertain about what the next step is, or you maybe greeted somebody not in the right way? Well, it's probably happened to most of us. And today, I'm very pleased to introduce to you a dear colleague, Syed Zafar, who is also very involved in the intercultural world. He's the author of the book entitled Crossing Cultures with Grace and Humor. And he has been involved in over 600 programs on intercultural communication with Fortune 500 companies and also with various academic institutions. He's also a board member of his local chapter of CTAR, the Society for Intercultural Education, Training, and Research. And I'm really happy to see what he has to share with us regarding how to be successful in all of our intercultural interactions. So, Syed, welcome. And I'd love to start this off maybe by asking you, what brought you into this world? What was one of those moments where you're like, I know I can help people with this?
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was oh, I'm sorry. Maria, you may have to cut this little piece, I guess. Thank you very much, Maria. Thanks for asking. I grew up in Pakistan the first 20 years of my life. So I was in a culture very different from the US culture. After that, I went and lived in Saudi Arabia for 4 years. And that culture was very different from my culture in Pakistan. And then when I was 24 years old, I came to the United States. And I was shocked. Things were so different, I never imagined. After started working for ExxonMobil, I learned about the Toastmasters, and I began to share my funny culture shock stories, being in Saudi Arabia, being in America with other people. And that's the one that sparked my interest and got me on the path of learning more and more about intercultural communications.
Oh, there's 3 Toastmasters here from what I can tell.
Yeah, if you can see in the back, you can see some of those trophies. Those are all the Toastmasters trophies from different contests. As you know, Toastmaster has those contests.
Good ad for Toastmasters here.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
well,
wonderful.
That is good to know. And obviously, everything started from that point on that you realize you have something to not only educate others on, but learn yourself. And the question that comes to mind, Syed, what do you believe are the 3 most critical facts someone must develop? Not only navigate, but thrive in diverse cultural environment. And how have you seen these traits directly impact success in cross-cultural relationships?
Yes, good point. There are a lot more than 3. It's very hard to come up with 3, but let's start. I think the first thing is the person has to learn to move from ethnocentrism to ethno-relativism. What is ethnocentrism? Ethnocentrism means I believe whatever way we do things is superior than anyone else. If everyone else just do the things like we do, everything is going to be fine. If you know, you mentioned my book, Maria, earlier, Crossing Cultures with Grace and Humor. I have the first chapter in the book is titled, We Don't Have a Culture. Because when I teach Americans about the cultural differences, many times they come to me and say, we don't have a culture. These are all other people, they have culture. If they just learn our way of doing things, things are going to be fine. So we need to learn to move from ethnocentrism to ethno-relativism. What does that mean? That means I recognize I have a culture. I may also believe my culture is better and superior in some way, some fashion. However, I acknowledge and recognize that different places have different cultures. And in their way of working, in their context, their values are perfect for them. I may or may not adopt them, but if I'm working with those people, I know what they are, and I may modify my way because I want to do business with them. So that would be it's a mind shift. If I keep stuck in ethnocentrism, I would not be open for any new learning, because I believe all the other people need to learn my way.
I just recently did a coaching for a couple of people, and one of my participants said, "Why can't they just do it this way? It's so much more reasonable. Why do they make things so difficult?" Like in his mind,
Yes.
everybody else was wrong, and
Yes.
the way he was doing it was,
Yeah.
it's like, why can't they just see this?
Yes. Yes. Very good point.
But it's always like a filter, right? He can't see past his own filter. I said to him, "Look, do you want to be right, or do you want to get things done?
Exactly.
You may be right in your mind, and of
Yeah.
course your way of doing things in your mind is perfect, but you're stuck, right? So do you want to continue to be stuck, or you want to get things done? If you want to get
Correct.
things done,
Correct.
you got to have to adjust."
Exactly. Very
Uh,
true. Very true.
and this is obviously, this is definitely, we got to stress on how important it is to understand our own cultural
Exactly.
tendencies, limitation, and preferences when working across cultures,
Correct.
because so often, so
Correct.
I mean, when I was growing up, and I confess, I thought my culture was it, just like Syed said, because sometimes you, depending on where you live, you're not exposed to different ways of life. I wake up, my parents do it this way, I do it this way. I
Yes.
go to school, teachers are telling me this is the way. I
Yeah.
see my peers doing the same thing, so I am following. Pretty much, most of our um, most of our childhood, adolescence years, we are just following.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes we don't question.
Very
Even
true.
when I was here, was attending university, one day I just asked curious question to my peers. Oh, what is the American culture?
Yeah.
And never ever anyone asked them that question. And back
Exactly.
then I was not in this field. It's just a matter of observing out in the world that there are different ways to do things. Well, the answer was pretty much either a look, huh? I don't know, or, well, it's Sunday afternoon football, beer, barbecue, but that's pretty much all they know. They don't know the dimensions. They not, and I understand them, because nobody talked to me about dimensions or cultural dimensions when I was growing up. I didn't know any of what I know now. So how do we go about addressing these issues where people are starting or start to realize or become self-aware of their environment? And when we're
Correct.
talking about cultures, yeah, we a lot, like us all here, I'm assuming we specialize in national cultures, but there are different levels of cultures. You
Yeah.
have regional, you have local,
Yes.
you have corporate, you have age, all this stuff. But
Correct.
as far as talking about the national
Yeah.
culture,
Yeah.
I believe this is a quite interesting topic that we we must introduce it at an early age. And I
Very.
always say, if you introduce these at an early age,
Yeah.
people will adapt, will understand,
Yeah.
and they won't be in need of diversity and inclusion programs, because that thinking, that mindset, that trait is growing up with you, that you see yourself in the midst of this global arena, one of the many perspective, the many mindsets that that they're out there that I need to be aware of.
Yeah.
I mean,
Very good.
you can go
Very
ahead
good.
and elaborate on this.
Correct. So you mentioned 3 points. So we talked about the first one, shifting, having the mind shift. So then I know I'm open. Once I'm open and recognize, then in the second point, there are three main pieces. First picture is to recognize what is culture. culture is beyond what you see on the surface. We call the iceberg of culture. What you see is the language, the clothing, the celebrations, the food, the music. We are talking about culture with a little c that is hidden, which is under the water, that people don't like. In your case, you said, what is your culture? Well, fish doesn't know this around water. Fish only recognize water when you remove. We don't recognize air, but when we don't have air, we cannot breathe. Then only recognize the existence of air, or the fish existence of water. So we have to be removed from our environment to recognize that differences really exist. So once we understand the concept of culture is there, next is, as you brought up, self-awareness. How does self-awareness comes? Then we begin to learn these major cultural dimensions. In cultural dimensions, there are profiles available like Country Navigator, like GlobeSmart, like Culture Wizard, which you can take your assessment and see where you are. What are some of those major cultural values? Direct versus indirect. US is very direct. Most of the world is not as direct in their communication like Germans and Dutch and Americans are. Mexico to South America to Asia to Africa to Middle East, people tend to be very indirect in their communication. Individualism is very common in the United States, but most of the world is not that individualist. They're more focused on collectiveness, the family, the group. And so we can go on and on those dimensions. Once you study those dimensions, you recognize those dimensions, that you can create a larger cultural mindset, and you have more multicultural situation. Now, the other part of the same thing is, now if I'm going to go to let's say, assume to Mexico, and I'm American, then it might be a good idea to, once I know cultural dimensions, what I believe culture exists, and I know basics about cultural differences, then I can study about Mexican. So idea is, first you learn about culture general. Once you have the good cultural general picture made, then only then you come to culture specific, so you don't just develop stereotypes. Oh, Mexicans are like this, Mexicans are like that. No, you really understand the root. Now, once you are done with number two, then you come to, there are certain personal characteristics. We call them intercultural competencies. Some people have them naturally. Some people have to develop them. Let me mention a few of those. And those really help us to adapt, as Maria originally saying, easily into the new situation. One is cultural curiosity. Am I curious about others? Do I always go to, for example, it happened to be another country, I always look for American restaurant, my McDonald's and Burger King or whatever to eat my food, because I don't know what these people eat in Japan. I'm not going to eat any of their stuff. So I don't have any cultural curiosity. Cultural curiosity is the key. Tolerance for ambiguity. If I'm in a new situation, am I open that I'm not going to have a clear answer for everything? It is going to be ambiguous situation because it is not the situation back home. Things are different here. Perspective taking. Do I have ability to recognize, okay, I cannot imagine what you are saying, but let me put my mind into your situation and look at the situation from your perspective. If I have that, I'm easier to learn and go into other culture. Culture humility. I recognize my value exists. I also recognize I'm humble about my cultural heritage, because I know my way is only one way. My way is not the only way. There are other people who have functioned very well, living in their own ways, eating their own ways, and they have been successful. The next one would be resilience. How resilient I am. Because if the situation is strange, I may be more frustrated. How quickly do I give up when I'm frustrated, or do I have a resiliency built in that I don't give up equally if I'm dealing with another culture? And the last one would be have ability to build relations. Even individualistic culture, is very hard to build relation because it's not in their DNA like the collectivist cultures have. They are always into building relationships. But individualists going around learning to build relationship helps. I can tell you lots of stories and all different things, but Mona talking about three things. So those would be the three things. Number one, being ability to shift mindset. Second, now once we are interested, we learn what culture is. We learn cultural differences, some major dimensions. There are lots of good books available on all that. And then once we have that, then we are focusing on a single culture. We learn about their culture. And then if we can develop some of these competencies, intercultural competencies, or desirable characteristics, if we don't have them, that would really help us.
Excellent. Excellent point. I know you were talking about the sense of belonging and humbleness and all that. And this is just a question that came to mind. And I would love to know whether you encountered that or you felt that way yourself. And be candid now. Is it possible? is it is it possible to feel out of place or struggle in the culture we were born into? For example, you were born into a certain culture, but you don't feel you belong to that culture, and you're always searching for that environment where you can be your whole self? And if so, what factors contribute to that feeling of disconnect? Maybe this is just came to mind.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah.
would love to know your thought, because
Correct.
I
Well,
one day, just to let you know, one day I was at a setting, and there was a French lady, and there was another lady from Mexico, somebody else from Bulgaria, and we were talking about differences of cultures. And the French lady said, "Well, my culture is, I feel that my culture is superior, is better." I said, "Well, there is no inferior and there's superior. There is just different cultures." And the Bulgarian lady made a comment that made me really think. And this is why I brought this up. She says, "I never felt I belong in Bulgaria. I found myself when I came here to the United States."
yeah,
Is that a feeling that is
correct.
that we find common feeling out there?
I don't know if it is common or not. I don't think it's that common, but it does exist. However, if the Bulgarian lady would have never left her own country, she would have never known that. Like my son living in Houston was very happy with all the humidity. And one time he went to Austin and he says, "Dad, what is this? I'm feeling so much better in Austin. There's no humidity in Austin, only 4 hour drive." And then he says, "Dad, I don't live in Houston. I hate humidity." So knowledge is evil. Once you know the information, once you experience something, you recognize how worse you had. So my mother, still in Pakistan, always in a group situation, when I'm talking, apologizes for me. Just ignore him. He's just too direct. He is not sophisticated. And I've been doing being direct since I was a child. And I was outcast in my own society. I was not liked for that. Once I arrived to United States, the directness is valued a lot. Individualism. I had a lot more individualism. As a matter of fact, I was married to an American woman from Akron, Ohio, white, blonde hair, blue eyes for many, many years. She said, "I'm more individualist than she is." Even my country is very, very collectivist. So you are right. Some of us are outcasts. They just don't fit in there. But I would have never known any of this information if I would not had the opportunity to come to America, which was another whole story by accident. I grew up pretty poor, did not have any means to come. My father may not have made money in all of his life what it cost just to travel from Pakistan to the United States. So in your question, I think it's right, but it's not extremely common because I know hundreds and thousands of Pakistanis living in this country. They are living in the United States, but they're living in their own world. There are 6 Pakistani families get together every week. They go to one person's house for a weekend, and that family, woman only, prepares all the dishes. All the women run to the kitchen and they talk about all the women stuff. All the men sit in the living room and they talk politics, about Pakistan politics at Pakistan cricket game, because I tried to take my wife into that. I just blew up on my face because uh, Joyce cannot talk to those Indian Pakistani women in the kitchen who are talking about clothing, makeup, children, and cooking. And then she goes to the men's area. They are speaking in Urdu, talking about the Pakistan politics. And but Joyce doesn't fit there. Joyce doesn't fit there. I said, I'm going to get out of this. I have my sister living in California. They are even practicing religious practices where they put on other hands on other people's head and cure them for diseases and stuff. They are practicing the old-fashioned things because God, I'm connected more to God. So if I put my hand on your head and you will be cured from your disease. And they are living that life. So lots of people really love, they are here to make money, but they are not here to mix with the culture. When my sister first arrived in California after getting married, she was there for a few months, and I called her. I said, how's it going? How's everything? She said, well, our neighbors are fine, but we have too many foreigners around. She's calling Americans the foreigners. And she is in America, just arrived.
That
So,
is so funny.
yeah, she really said to me, "This we have some foreigners around us," because she heard the word foreigners when she was living in Pakistan, and she still think these people are foreigners. Now she is the one who is in their land, and she is the foreigner, and she's supposed to learn how they function. They would not have any idea about her. That's the other thing that bothers a lot to me. People come to this country and they expect Americans to know what their culture is. I am the sojourner. I chose to leave my land, my home. It's my job to know how these people work. This is not their job to learn about me because they are dealing with hundreds of cultures, hundreds of nationalities. This is America, after all, land of dreams. People come flock here from all over the world. Yesterday, I was talking to these people who were living in Norway for 17 years. They says they don't want anyone to come to Norway. They don't want anyone to come and live in Norway. We have our way. Our way is superior. We are not to change our way. You come here, but you go away. We are the same people from generation after generation. No mixing is allowed.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah, and I did well, the land of opportunity, the dream, but also land of immigrants as well. So we all fit in here, and we just need to have some grace and time to learn about one another and about each other's culture. And as far as in Norway, I completely understand. I was told or read somewhere that they were either that or Sweden, somewhere there, that they were given $35,000 to immigrants to leave their country. That's
Oh,
quite
really?
interesting. Yes, yeah. They tell them here's
Yeah,
$35,000. Go
yeah,
where you
right,
came from and build your life.
right,
But that's a different subject,
correct,
and we respect that. Now,
right.
I know that you worked in Saudi Arabia. And my question, we would like to know a little bit about that. And has your culture from Pakistan prepared you to navigate the Saudi culture? I do know that they're both in Asia. This one is in Asia. This one in Asia. How? I mean,
Correct.
how the two Asian again,
Yes,
two
yes,
Asian countries,
yeah, yeah,
but two distinct cultures. How has
yes,
the Pakistani environment prepared you?
yeah, yeah. So one thing we have common, our language is Urdu, so we are not Arabs, we are not in Middle East, but many Americans think Pakistan is in Middle East, by the way. And so we do not speak Arabic, we speak Urdu. However, we are all required, because 99% of the people are Muslim in the country, we are all required, and I grew up as a Muslim as well, to read the Quran, and it takes you 3-4 years to finish reading it. And then that requires reading Arabic alphabet. So Arabic alphabet is similar to Urdu alphabet. The other thing is the Urdu language is made up of Arabic, the Persian, the Turkish, and the Hindi and the Sanskrit, and some of the English. So we do have some common words. but the way you speak, the way you put sentences together, and the way the speed you speak, I cannot understand anything when they're speaking Arabic. So, and of course, Pakistan is a conservative country, which is Muslim. Saudi Arabia is a conservative country, which is Muslim. However, I had so many shocks in Saudi Arabia. Number one, you can never see any woman anywhere; they're all covered. Not in Pakistan. Um, the other thing I noticed was they were very rude to us, and they believe we are low level human being because we were born in Pakistan. They worship the Americans, the white people, because they were born in America and they are white, and they consider them superior than themselves, and they consider us inferior. In my job as a photocopy technician, there was a Saudi who also was a technician. He was getting 5 times more salary than I was getting, simply because, and he was doing less work than I was. He, half the time, he chose not to show up, but he was given 5 times more because he was Saudi national. The other thing is, unlike America, you can live in Saudi Arabia all your life. My brother lived there most of his life. He had 3 kids there. None of them have Saudi nationality. They would never give a foreigner a nationality. You cannot marry any of their women either. Tell you a funny story. So one time my boss told me there's a photocopy machine broken at a women's college. You go and fix it. I'm jumping up and down with joy. I'll get to see all those women in the women's college. I never get to see any Saudi woman, what they look like. So all excited, I get to the college and I try to go to the big, huge gate, tall walls. And you cannot look inside the big compound and the big lock on the big, huge iron door. Then I see a little small shack adjacent to the big gate, and there's a small little door. I go in there. There's a man, old man, looks like 90-year-old, very long white beard sitting there. I explained to him in my broken Arabic. Now I've been there for a year. Within 6 months, never having a single lesson on Arabic language, I am speaking enough Arabic to survive. Necessity is the mother of invention. When it is on your head, when it's your survival depends on it, you learn. I have tried taking classes in Spanish 3 times. I failed every time. But there, I was also young. I was 20-year-old. Within 6 months, I was speaking enough Arabic to shop, to take a taxi, to fix a photocopy machine, to get the money from them, to explain them what's wrong with the machine, all in Arabic. Okay, so I explained to him, I need to go inside. I need to fix photocopy machine. He calls inside. There's a little door between his little shack and this big, huge building. A woman comes in. She tells me to come behind her. I enter into this big, huge compound and I start walking behind her. To my surprise, she starts clapping. And I'm wondering, oh my God, they're all so happy to see me. They're celebrating. Thanks to cultural differences, that was not the case. That was a signal to all the women to hide themselves behind door, behind pillars, behind furniture, because there's a man on the compound. They all just disappear, like Moses put a stick in the water and the water departed. They all disappear. I go, fix the machine. On my way back, same process. So that was one of my experiences there. Also,
you never got to see any of the women then. Oh well.
Well, I'm sure it changed. I was just there last year in December.
Yeah,
It changed quite a lot. There are a lot of changes, and I believe. I mean, again, um, as far as I'm concerned, and we're concerned, we observe, we assess, we process, we understand, we try to find answers. I never go into any place and say, well, this is just not working. Okay, first of all, I need to understand why. Why is this happening? Why will answer a lot of your questions for you to understand. I do understand that there's a huge difference between Pakistani and Saudi cultures. quite a lot of differences. But would you say that the culture, the
Hmm.
Saudi culture,
Hmm.
is the reason why you were treated that way, or you thought you were treated that way, or you were obviously paid less
Yeah.
for
So
certain
it
time?
goes by, yeah. So as you know, one of the cultural dimension we talk about Hofstede's, geared Hofstede's power distance. Some countries
Oh,
have large power distance, some countries have small power distance. If you look at
yeah,
Hofstede, Middle East and large power distance.
yeah,
Also, we need to recognize most of these people just 50 years ago were living in desert with camels, with Bedouins and tents. So we call them from camel to Cadillac in one generation. So when
yeah,
you, and by when I was there, they did not have a first set of graduates who were Arab and they finished their PhD. They were still going through the process. It takes person from his kindergarten to do PhD 25, 30 years. They didn't have the first badge. They were heavily relying on outside. And who were the outside people who really set everything up were the Europeans, the Americans. They did not know how to do any of the work where they get the people because they happened to strike oil and suddenly they got very, very rich. So they went to all these countries to get the labor. So Pakistanis are cleaning the streets, picking up the garbage, and all the menial job. In hierarchical culture, who do the lower level menial job are treated rudely. My sister treats her servant rudely. She yells and screams at them. She may slap them here and there. They cannot sit with her to eat. That is today. And they will always be on the floor. And it's okay to treat them like that because Pakistan is also very large power distance, and that's how the culture thinks about them. I did do a Zoom meeting. It's an hour long. You can get access to it. Where me got together with an Indian lady who is living in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and we did Saudi Arabia now and then. And then I told my stories, and she told what's happening today. She is very pro talking about all the changes have been made. For example, today, any woman from anywhere in the world can go to Saudi Arabia alone. It used to be you need to have a chaperone man to go. So they are going
yeah,
many changes. Women can drive today. When I was there, even a few years ago, they were not able to drive. So
yeah. I saw them.
yeah, lots of things in the culture are changing. You are saying it's some of them, it might be my thinking, but some of them was part of that culture.
Yeah,
Another story we heard, Mona, was a Saudi company interviewed a person on the phone. Those days in 80s, there were no videos and no not a lot of later, maybe not even interviewed on the phone, just through the letter. All the credentials came, all the information came. They offered him a salary, and the guy flew, and he was U.S. citizen. When he arrived into the office, they looked at him one time and they asked him. They reported him right away. You need to go back. We don't need you. We want you, because they thought they were getting a white person, and the person was brown.
hmm,
Uh, those are
interesting. I mean,
those are the actual stories, because they always assume that face with the menial jobs like Pakistan, India, Philippines, Bangladesh, all those countries, Thailand, all the people getting from them, that's what they were paying, and they were not willing to pay that amount to the person whose face is like that.
well, I guess we have to do a lot of work then. We have to do lots of work to change mind and open hearts and
Yeah.
make
You
people
asked me to tell
understand.
about Saudi Arabia. I'm sorry. This is my style. I'm frank. I'm direct. I'm
I
sharing my
understand.
experience. Yeah.
I understand. And everybody, you know what? Everybody has his own experience. I mean, when I was there, I had an
Yeah.
excellent time, interactions, and I met lots of women, a lot of professional women.
Yeah.
I even went to companies and met with them. I could see their faces. I was invited to private
Yeah.
events.
No,
I
woman
was
can
pretty
see.
much,
A woman can see woman's face is fine. is the
No,
male to
they
female.
were in general setting. I mean,
Yeah.
public
At
setting
that
where they
time,
were.
none. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this time is fine. Yes, on the roads, you would see a lot of women driving. I mean, things have changed drastically from the
Yeah.
times you were
Yeah.
there. And again, we just have to respect every culture because there are steps and stages
Yeah.
that every culture goes through.
Correct.
And we're not picking on a country or anything. It's just a matter of stages. And at
Yeah.
one point you will go back there and you'll just say, uh-huh, how did that happen? Everything changed.
Yeah.
Everything is not the same. And the role of educators like ourselves is tremendous,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
absolutely vital to help people
Yeah.
first be aware of their own culture. First be aware of it. Because a lot of all these stories that you're saying, I bet you, if you go and sit down with these people and ask them, are you aware of what you're doing? They will say, no, that's how we were brought up to think and do things.
Well, it's what
So
he was saying about the fish and water. But here's another
yeah.
thing. Mona and I, right before you got on, Syed, we were talking, and she says, "Oh my gosh, I am so grateful for all of the learning." She's dealt with like 129 countries. And she says it's so important, especially if you're doing nonprofit work, because people are volunteering. So you need to make sure that you're navigating with volunteers who don't have to be there. They don't have to cooperate and collaborate if they don't want to. But how do you get them to want to? And whether it's a profit or nonprofit, how do you get people to work together happily, harmoniously, and with the best intention and goodwill?
Very, very true. Very true. Last thoughts. So I think open-mindedness and, as you said, forgiveness helps. For going away, you were, Mona, saying something. I'll relate. You were talking about assess and then react. One thing I can leave it with you is a tool called DIE rule, DIE. Whenever we are in a new situation, first step is to describe what we see in our mind. It may be a second or 2 seconds or a half second, because our mind quickly works and decides what the situation we are in. If we're in a new situation, we are not sure what's going on, thinking in our mind to describe what is happening without judgment. I have certain exercises we do in that area. Once you go through describe, then you come to I, interpret. You come up with several answers to that scenario. It could be this, it could be that, it could be this. Then at the end, you have to come to E, evaluate, have some kind of a judgment, some kind of a way to recognize what the situation is to move forward. But our mind is so quick. We see the situation, we come to the judgment. So slowing down, maybe applying the DIE rule, we will be a little bit more successful. That does not negate, first of all, recognize my culture is not the only culture moving through ethno-relativism. Second, recognize, understand basics of culture, the culture general knowledge. And then with that, understanding what culture is, recognize major cultural dimensions. Once we have that, we need to see if we have some of those competencies, characteristics innate in them by birth, or can we cultivate and develop some of those innate, that for some those are innate, from cultural curiosity to tolerance for ambiguity to perspective taking to cultural humility to resilience and to relationship building.
Thank you so much for this session. Any final thoughts, Maria, before we say goodbye? That has been interesting. This has been interesting.
I just want to thank you, Syed. Your storytelling is always very, very entertaining.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, there are about 100 more stories. We don't have time, but we can pick. We can take one cultural dimensions, and I can tell you a few stories per cultural dimensions.
Yes.
I will send you the Zoom video of the Arab now and then. Great. You may enjoy that.
Wonderful.
Listening to the lady Mona, especially because you just visited recently. If I would have known you were going to Riyadh, did you go to Riyadh?
Yes.
I would have given you the name of the lady. You may have met her. She would have been very
Oh,
happy to meet. So, okay,
planning
back to
to
you,
go
guys.
back there very soon, so we'll see. Okay, well, thank you so very much, and until then, stay open-minded, just like Syed says. Stay open-minded, stay curious, and stay respectful. That's the only way we can get ahead ourselves, get ahead in life, and help others get ahead as well. Take care and all the blessings. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.